Hey there, fellow soil lovers. Welcome back to the Soil House, where we dig deep into the practices that transform ordinary gardens into thriving ecosystems. Today, we're talking about something that might sound technical, but is actually beautifully simple: carbon farming. And here's the exciting part. You're probably already doing some of this work without even realizing it. Every time you add compost, mulch your beds, or let your soil rest under a cover crop, you're participating in one of the most powerful climate solutions available to us. Let's explore how we can take these practices further and turn our gardens into carbon-capturing powerhouses. Before we dive into the techniques, let's talk about what's actually happening beneath our feet. Plants are incredible carbon farmers. They pull carbon dioxide from the atmosphere through photosynthesis and pump a significant portion of that carbon into the soil through their roots. This process, called carbon sequestration, is happening in your garden right now. The magic happens when soil microbes feast on the sugars and organic compounds that plant roots exude, creating stable carbon compounds that can stay locked in the soil for decades or even centuries. The problem is that conventional gardening practices, tilling, leaving soil bare, relying heavily on synthetic inputs, reverse this process, releasing stored carbon back into the atmosphere. When we break up soil structure through aggressive cultivation, we're essentially opening the door for carbon to escape. But when we work with nature instead of against it, we can flip the script entirely. Your garden becomes a net carbon sink rather than a source, and the soil becomes richer, more resilient, and more productive in the process. The cornerstone of carbon farming is building soil organic matter, and this starts with treating your soil like the living ecosystem it is. Every tablespoon of healthy soil contains more microorganisms than there are people on Earth. These tiny workers, bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and nematodes, are your partners in carbon sequestration. When you feed them, they feed your plants and lock carbon away in the process. Start by minimizing or eliminating tillage in your garden beds. I know this goes against what many of us learned, but hear me out. When you till, you're disrupting the fungal networks that hold soil particles together and create those stable carbon compounds we want. Instead, build your beds using a no-till approach. Layer compost and organic matter on top of the soil, and let the worms and microbes do the work of incorporating it. This preserves soil structure, protects the microbial community, and keeps carbon where it belongs. Composting is your most accessible carbon farming tool, but think beyond the basic pile. When you compost, you're creating a concentrated source of stable carbon that improves soil structure and water retention while feeding beneficial microbes. Aim for a diverse mix of materials: kitchen scraps, garden waste, leaves, and even small amounts of paper or cardboard. The more diverse your inputs, the more diverse your microbial community will be. And here's a pro tip: don't wait for your compost to be fully broken down before applying it. Partially decomposed compost actually provides a longer-lasting food source for soil life and continues the carbon-building process right in your beds. If you want to maximize carbon sequestration in your garden, you need to keep living roots in the soil as long as possible throughout the year. This is where many gardeners miss a huge opportunity. Every month your beds sit bare is a month you're missing out on carbon capture and soil building. Living plants are constantly pumping carbon into the soil through their root exudates, and different plants feed different microbial communities. Embrace succession planting with a carbon-focused mindset. As soon as you harvest one crop, get another in the ground. In areas where you can't immediately plant food crops, use fast-growing cover crops like buckwheat or annual ryegrass to keep those roots active. During the cooler months, winter cover crops like crimson clover, winter rye, or hairy vetch don't just protect your soil, they're actively building it, even when growth above ground seems minimal. Diversity matters tremendously here. Instead of planting monocultures, try mixing your vegetables with herbs, flowers, and even perennial plants. Tomatoes love growing near basil and marigolds. Squash thrives beneath a trellis of pole beans. This polyculture approach mimics natural ecosystems and supports a broader range of soil organisms. Different root depths, different exudate profiles, different nutrient needs. All of this creates a more robust and carbon-rich soil food web. If there's one practice that delivers immediate and dramatic results for carbon farming, it's mulching. A thick layer of organic mulch is like a savings account for carbon. You're making deposits that compound over time. As mulch slowly breaks down, it feeds soil organisms, improves moisture retention, suppresses weeds, and gradually increases soil organic matter. The key is to use what's available locally and apply it generously. Wood chips are fantastic for pathways and around perennial plants, slowly breaking down over months or years and building deep, carbon-rich soil in the process. For annual beds, lighter materials like straw, leaves, or grass clippings work beautifully. I aim for about 3 to 4 inches of mulch in my beds, reapplying as it breaks down throughout the season. One of the most exciting developments in regenerative gardening is the move toward permanent beds with established pathways. When you designate specific areas for walking and keep foot traffic off your growing beds, you protect soil structure and all those precious air pockets where microbes thrive. Compaction is carbon's enemy. It squeezes out oxygen, reduces microbial activity, and slows down the processes that lock carbon away. Design your garden with beds you can reach into from both sides without stepping on the soil. 4 feet wide is the standard, but adjust based on your reach and comfort. Once established, these beds become carbon reservoirs that improve year after year. The undisturbed soil develops a stable structure, and the microbial networks grow increasingly complex. After just a few years of working this way, you'll notice the difference. Darker soil, better drainage, easier planting, and plants that seem to thrive with less intervention. While we can't easily measure the exact amount of carbon we're sequestering without those expensive soil tests, there are plenty of visible indicators that you're on the right track. Darker soil color, for example, generally means you've got higher organic matter content. Better water infiltration is another good sign, showing that your soil structure is improving. And if you spot an abundance of earthworms, it really shows that soil life is thriving. Plus, your plant's vigor, disease resistance, and productivity will all improve as your soil carbon increases. Keep a garden journal and note these observations over seasons and years. Take photos of the same beds at the same time each year. You'll be amazed at how the soil transforms. That transformation represents carbon pulled from the atmosphere and locked away in your garden, all while growing more nutritious food and creating habitat for beneficial insects and wildlife. The beautiful thing about carbon farming in your garden is that every practice that builds carbon also makes your garden more productive, resilient, and enjoyable to work in. You're not sacrificing anything, you're creating a system that benefits you, your plants, and the planet. Every handful of compost you add, every cover crop you plant, every day you leave your soil covered and undisturbed is a small act of climate restoration. So, here's my challenge to you. Pick one carbon farming practice from this article and implement it this week. Just one. Maybe you'll add an extra inch of mulch to your beds, or maybe you'll order cover crop seeds for the areas that will be empty next month. Small actions compound over time, and together we're building something bigger than our individual gardens. We're building a movement of climate gardeners who understand that healing the soil is healing the atmosphere. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to the Soil House for more practical, science-backed gardening wisdom. Share this with a fellow gardener who's ready to make their garden part of the climate solution. Let's grow together, build soil together, and show the world that regenerative gardening isn't just good for our backyards, it's essential for our future. Now get out there and get your hands dirty.